Okay, hello, welcome. I'm going to go through the latest UK qualification case, A Suitable Suitor by Elliot Paterson, based on the Pride and Prejudice novel. Very fun case, very different sort of thing you wouldn't think you could turn into something like this, but yeah, really, really good. I've done some of the prep work already so that this video doesn't become too bloated. Obviously, I'm talking myself going through it, so it takes longer than like you could theoretically do it if you were doing it really quickly. If that makes sense. I'll say a little bit about what I did in the live case and how that's different to what I'm doing now. But generally, the approach I'm taking now is what I did, including in the kind of catch-up bit afterwards, where you can kind of keep solving through to the end. So yeah, that's enough introduction. I'll probably say a little bit more about my thoughts at the end. So let us. I'm going to do a little clock just so we can keep actually some time, and let's get going. So we've got basically 3 tabs: characters, events, and calendars, which were in a funny format, although fine for a calendar, but funny for Excel, where you want everything to be flattened data. And so yeah, let's get through this and see how we do. So first question. I've actually got my workings there from when I was just testing this. So this confused me. I think it confused some other people. All this was actually asking for was to say, well, if you are who is the person named in the third row of each entry? So Elizabeth Bennet, Charlotte Lucas. So how we extract that is we text split this based on character 10, which is the line break character, which if you didn't know, that's something you've learned. And then we want the last entry, so we're going to say take, and we're going to take the -1, which is the last column, and that gives us our answers. And if I fill that down, we should see those, and I'll just copy those across into the answer sheets so we know for certain that we've got those correct. Yes. Okay. Question 2. This is a basic kind of index match where you're saying, right, you've got a character and a trait. So go to the characters, look up the character, look up the trait, and return the number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the table lookup lambda. I need to import my lambdas. This is one I got, I think, from Hayden, and it took me a while to get it working because I hadn't realized, actually, this isn't going to work until I convert this into a table called characters, which makes sense, although it's a Excel term that can get confusing because we use character to refer to a letter. So I'm going to use table lookup, and what I've realized is in order for it to work, I have to use the little square brackets and refer to the whole of the table before I then look up the row item in which is the character, and the column item, and then that gives me the correct answer. Right, level 3, we're going to start using a data table, and we're going to use some more information. So we're now going to start, we're just focusing on characters here. So character is in P1, Elizabeth Bennet. Our partner is in C1, and what we need to do is I'm going to actually use index match here. Yeah, I'm going to go, because I've got an index match lambda that I'm trying out. So I'm looking at my items, which if I go to my characters, and I could use this, the reason I could just use the table lookup, but I wrote index match in case we ever have data that's not in a table. So character names is my items, my headers are just the ones that aren't above the character names, my values is this kind of intersecting space, and then my row item is actually going to be from the question, which is the character, although I'm going to use both characters. Do this at once because it should work as a spill, and these are my traits, and that returns everything. So 13, 14, 19, 13, 14, these are the numbers, and then what we want to do is find the difference between the two. So we can sum -1 from the other. Normally we'd have to wrap that in an absolute, but because we're going to wrap this in a raising it to the power of 2, that removes the negative issue, because every time you square a number, it always is positive. So if we sum that, we get 237. Our answer example is correct, and if we come to our case, we can see they're all correct. Okay, for level 4, I'm going to copy the workings from level 3 as a starting point, and then got to do some extra work here. So this time we have an event to refer to. So our event is in D1, and events also have attributes associated to them. So we'll go to the events table. We need to convert this into a table as well, which happily we call events. And so we're going to do the same thing. I'll use my lookup again. So we're looking at events, and we want the whole table. And our row item is the event, and our traits are these. And we also want the favor as well. Doesn't like that. What have I done wrong? I used this curly bracket or smooth bracket instead of close. And then we need to get these numbers into Elizabeth Bennet. So I'm going to wrap hers in brackets, add these 5 numbers, and then we get 387, and the favour is 124. So our answer over here is this minus that, and I've changed that to equals, and that should give us all of our answers. And we go to case level 4. Have I done something wrong there? Have I done this the wrong way? So the answer is the favour, so equals favour minus that. What am I doing wrong here? I'm just going to quickly pause so I'm not wasting your time. Okay, I've worked out what was going wrong. It's because this here is actually referencing level 3. So I need to take out those references to level 3 because it's looking back at what I still have on the old one. Okay, so that should now be working. Yes, level 4. I have to be careful of that when I copy the workings over. So level 5, but speaking the devil, let's do this now. So level 4, we're going to copy over this to level 5, and everything goes a bit skew-whiff because now we're going to be looking at a specific calendar. So on this first question, we're looking at Elizabeth Bennet's character, so we can put that in as hard-coded, but everything else is going to be based on the date in her calendar. So this is where we need to do some setup work based on our calendar. So the way I did this was I'm going to col this whole range here. So all 10 calendars, I'm going to go all to the way to the bottom. And I'm going to try and do this as neatly and as tidy as possible. So I'm going to grab an extra row because underneath each of the first 10 tables there's an extra row, and that just means we'll have a consistent size. And then we're going to use text split on each of actually I'm going to do some tidying on this because on some of these we've got empty rows which we don't need because it's bringing through these empty gaps. So what I might do is let's filter that where that doesn't equal 0. So let's get rid of some of those empty rows. So we did have 560 rows. We've now going to have less than that. So we're going to have 390. Okay, that makes life a little bit more easier. We still got this random extra Monday, Tuesday row of data, but for now I'm not going to worry about that. So let's make this a little bit wider. So we now need to text split this like we did in actually level 1. So we're going to take that, split it by character 10. That's all we need to do, but we need to go all the way to the bottom and then all the way to the top, tear that down. So if we look at this, what we're getting now, make this a bit wider, is where we actually have events, we're getting the event and the partner as well. So I'm going to call this because this is where we have the event date, this is where we have the event, and this is the partner. And the last thing we need to find out is whose calendar is it, because this first lot is all Elizabeth Bennet's and the second lot is all Jane Bennet's. So the way I did this in the real thing was basically counted how many rows there were in my col, which is 390, so divided by 10, that's 39. So each calendar is taking up 39 rows. So if what I do is I grab firstly the character name, get all 10 of those, and then what I do is I've got a lambda called stack grouping, and if I put as the argument 39, because we said there's 39 rows, it will repeat each name 39 times. So Elizabeth Bennet is this first calendar. When Elizabeth Bennet changes down here to Jane Bennet, it's also when we then start Jane Bennet. So we now have kind of flattened data. And then also to help things a little bit later, the date, actually no, I'll leave that for now. So I'm going to convert all of those into named ranges, and that's going to help me with my work here. So if I go back here, what I want to do is the first character is Elizabeth Bennet, and we're looking for her, what she's doing on the first. I'm going to filter the partner. Oh, didn't type equals. I'm going to filter the partner when the calendar equals Elizabeth Bennet and the event date equals what's up here in B1, and I should get Mr. Bingley, and I'm going to copy that formula also for the event and change partner to the event, and we now get our information, and already our data table is set up to get the correct answer because we've now got these variables. So if I go to the case, level 5, we're all correct. And then this is the first time where I feel like I've done something a bit smart in the live case, because the way I prepared my level 5 setup was I kind of thought, oh, on this level, they're only asking us to look at one calendar. I wonder what they'll do on the next level. Oh, they'll ask us to look at the next calendar. So by basing everything else to also include this kind of lookup on the calendar meant when I got to level 6, I just paste that work over. All I had to do was change this to point at the name they gave us, and then everything else just went straight through. So that's the first time I've really had something. I was like, oh, brilliant. All I have to do is change one thing and my next level is done. And if we look at the case for case 6, there we are. But by the time I got to level 6, I was already past 20 minutes, and I decided to then go to the bonuses because I looked at level 7 and thought I'm not going to be able to do that in 10 minutes. I don't think I'll even be able to do it in 10 minutes now. So, which was the right decision for me because I didn't have time. So let's go and do level 7 now. So having looked at level 7, what do we actually need? So what I did here was we're now comparing two people's entire schedules for the whole month and working out the relative scores of some of the things we've been working out before. So I wanted to get a whole sequence. So yeah, I wanted to get a whole sequence of all of the dates. So what I did was I did a sequence of 31 days, and then I wrapped this in my ordinal number lambda, so that I then get the dates as they appear in the event date element. Then what I wanted to do is I wanted to find what the event was for each character. So I'm going to filter the event where let's think about this, the calendar belongs to this person, and let's fix that based on the row, and the event date equals this value here, and that gives me the event. And actually, to make this just a little bit more efficient, we'll H stack the event and the partner because they are always kind of connected, and that fills both rows at the same time. So if I then fill that to the bottom, we get all of the event and partners, and then each event also has associated characteristics. So then we're going to let's do table lookup on the events table, making sure we grab all of it, and then our row item is the event and our column items are these, and let's again fix those based on the row so that when we drag this down we get it for all. And let's add in a if error on these, so all of those other ones just return 0, so we don't get any calculation errors there. So that's now telling us everything that Mr. Collins does, who he does it with, and what the favor is. And then we need to firstly work out what his starting values are. So again, table lookup on characters, take the whole table. The row item is the character, the column items are these, and got a reference error because I've got a hash instead of a square brackets, and that's what he has at the start. And then I'm already on example, for some reason I'm on example B, that's fine. Let's go. So then what we want to do is we need to sum, let's bi-col this, so this whole range here, we're going to sum. Let's go to example 7a because that's the one I can see here. So by the end of it, we can see Elizabeth Bennett is on 17, 19, 35, 28, and 21, which is correct. So let's grab all of these workings, paste them over for Mr. Darcy as well. Also grab these workings, place them in the same place, and we should be getting close to being able to put everything together. So the difference, and let's do this all in one cell this time. So it's the sum of this minus his differences raised to the power of 2, and we get 381, which is correct. And then we've got this thing about the events on her calendar where she was with the other person. So when they are, so she has 12 events with Mr. Darcy. We want to know what the favor was on those. So we're going to say we're going to filter the favor on the events where the partner equals this person, and we actually want to sum that. And we're also going to put in an if error because I know from testing this that there are a couple where that is the case. I put my if error too quickly, and then going to do the same thing. So if error sum the filter of this favor where this partner equals that person, and we get, oh, I've done that wrong. I've done the same one for both times. So this second one, it should be the partner favor and swap that partner over. We get two different numbers. We get 694 and 788, which is good. And the total likability is the two favors minus the difference, which gives us 1101. And I think that is level 7 correct. Okay, let's go on to the bonuses. So bonus number 1, what is the name of the character as the lowest starting traits? So we're going to go to characters. We're just going to sum that. We actually just need the row because it will make it into a table. And we can go most least. We want the input. Oh no, I want largest smallest. My largest smallest. Oh, overcomplicating things here. So the largest smallest. This is my range of values. This is my return labels, but I actually want the smallest. So we get Mr. Collins is the person with the smallest. I mean, the numbers were there's only 10 there. I probably could have done that just by visually. How many events on the events tabs have a negative effect on wit? So we go to wit. Oh, that's my workings from before when I was practicing. So count ifs, the wit column is less than 0, which gives us 18. Okay, now this next one, I'm just going to check my working because don't want to waste any time here. Okay, lots of ways you could do this. The way I've settled on just now is using a group by. So if we group by based on calendar and we're looking at the event, what do we want to do? We know that the events which have a dash are kind of a non-event, so a day where they didn't have an event, and we know the maximum number of events could be 31. So what I'm going to do is do a lambda in here where I'm going to take my events for that person, and what I want to do is I'm firstly going to say, well, basically does event equal dash, and then I'm going to within that sum those where that is true. So that's going to count how many times they have a non-event, and then if I take 31 and minus that, then we should get the actual number of events they had, and we're looking for the largest, not including that might total over there, which is 26. So that gives me 26. Then bonus 4, what is the sum of the square of the difference for the starting traits of all possible character pairings? There should be 45, so order doesn't matter. So we'll take our workings from level 3, and what we'll do is we will grab all of the characters' name. We'll then do a duplicate to row of that, and then I'm going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to point to this is my answer, but what I want to do is copy and paste these as values only, create this as a new data table where we point our row at one of them and our column at the other, and we get all the various pairings. So Darcy and Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth are 237. So if we sum that, but also at the same time divided by 2, so we're actually not, everything's only been counted once, we get 9704. And then we're going to go on to level 7. Using the level 7 rules, calculate the likability score between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy at the end of every day of the month. What is the sum of their likability scores? We should be summing 32 values, i.e. the score on day 0 before anything's happened, and then the score on each of the subsequent 31 days. And I'm just going to pause my work here to check what I did before so I don't waste any time on this one. Okay, so I'm going to start by making a copy of this, just so in case I mess things up. I'm going to take my time with this because I don't want to mess this explanation. So the basic thing here is we're going to use a different data table because what we're going to do is iterate through 32 different options. So I'm going to make a sequence of 32, copy those as values only, and I'm going to put up here a cell which is going to be where I'm going to start on my kind of day. The issue is our dates, our event dates are not actual numbers, they're ordinal numbers. So I'm going to go over to calendars and I'm going to create an additional column. I'm going to call it date num, and I'm simply going to extract numbers from the event date. And where we have numbers, we will get numbers. And then I'm going to go back here, and again, I'm just going to pause to make sure I don't waste time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this so I no longer want the ordinal numbers, we want real numbers, but that's going to mess all this up because it's looking for ordinal numbers. But if I change this to date num, or was it date num or was it num date num. No, it was date num. No, because I've not actually named that range which I've created. So let's go over here and let's name that date num. So go back to this. So change this to date num and then fill that down. And I'm going to add, let's just do that for both sides just to make sure it's working. And we'll just have that referring to this instead. And we'll fill that down as well. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to set a conditional thing that says actually only return those where the date is greater or less than this. So what I'm going to say, let's imagine we go to put that to 3. I'm going to say also, actually no, I don't need to add an additional condition. I just need to change this to date number is less than this. Is that right? Change that to that and fix that cell. Okay, get myself into a bit of a pickle here because I realised I've done this slightly different than when I was preparing it. So I do need to have two conditions in here. So I also need to check that the date num equals what's in this column. And now if I fill that down, what I will get is I'll only return the events that happen before the date that we're currently interested in. So I just need to replicate that over here. So I also need to say and date num is less than this here and lock that, and doesn't like that. So let me just double check that. I've just forgotten to wrap that in an extra set of brackets. And again, I'll fill that down. And so we get a calculation error for anywhere it's not actually happened. And thankfully, because we've already got an if error here, that's not going to cause any issues. So on day 1, we're at 237. And then if we go cycle through these 2, 3, we start to add dates and our likability score changes. So let's now set up our data table to take our day number as the input, not in the row, but in the column. And we get all of our values, and if we sum those, we get 5394, 5394, which is correct. I'm going to stop the clock. It says 23 there. Actually, I paused quite a few times, and when I paused, I had to take a couple of seconds to pause this, so that was probably a little bit shorter. In fact, yeah, my video recording is only 22 minutes 50, which with an extra minute. So, yeah, I'm desperate not to waste people's time as I'm doing these recordings. And actually, that level 7 bonus took me probably longer than it did in the time it took when we were doing the keep solving at the end of the case. So yeah, this is not my best explanation video, particularly that, but we got there in the end. Like I said, really enjoyable case. In the live thing, I actually did all the calendar setup work straight away. As soon as I saw the first question, I actually even used it for the first question, which meant I actually made a mistake on one of them because I think there was a duplicate entry potentially. So I lost 14 marks on one of these, which is why my score, so my max score could have been 1050 because I did everything other than the last bonus and the last level, which means I was missing out on 200 possible marks, and then I dropped 14, which turns out was on level 1, and there you go. So yeah, so I did all that character, so the calendar setup straight away. It wasn't quite as tidy as I did now because I didn't get rid of these zeros, and so I then again had issues where I was like filtering for date and there were empty rows in there, so that's a little bit better. But events treated that the same, characters was the same, and then pretty much what I've shown you here is what I did with this. I used a heart. I wrote the index match and then realized afterwards I should be using table lookup. Level 3, this is pretty much how I did it. I then built that work into level 4, built up to level 5. As I said, at level 5 I kind of anticipated level 6 that would be asked to not just look at one calendar but change which calendar we're looking at, which made level 6 nice and easy. Like I said, I think I looked at my time, I had about 10 minutes left after level 6. I thought level 7, I think the explanation really scared me. When you look at the example on level 7, like you can't even fit on one screen barely the entire example or the examples. So I thought, oh, I don't think I'm going to get through that. So I started doing the bonuses. I think I got through. I got through the 4 bonuses. then had 4 minutes left, realised I'm definitely not going to do level 7, so submitted early. So my solve time was about 26. Would I've... I guess the only question I'd have is whether I would have been, given that there was 200 marks in the bonuses, even if I'd, instead of trying to do the bonuses, try to do level 7 in that 10 minutes, I might have been able to do it, but I guess I would have risked something going wrong. My level 3 is showing wrong just because we changed the data table, but we know that was right. So really fun case. Again, the big difference between doing it under timed conditions and then having the time afterwards to try and solve it as you wish. Level 7 bonus. Don't like all these errors. It's a bit messy, but we got there in the end. So hope you found that helpful. Even if you didn't, I find it helpful to do this because it forces me to learn and understand cases. And as I said, I'm still just getting into this 6 months or so now. And I know there's people out there been playing for quite a few years. So just got to keep catching up, keep studying, keep working hard, and hopefully see if we can make any progress. So thanks for watching. Oh, and again, well, it's too late to say this, but definitely feel free to watch this on 1.5 or double speed.